5:27 local time in the Persian Gulf. Day 30 of Operation Epic Fury. 150 freight vessels are sitting dead in the water at the most consequential choke point on Earth. Oil tankers, LNG carriers, container ships loaded with cargo that factories, hospitals, and power grids on 4 continents are waiting for. All of them anchored, all of them going nowhere. The Strait of Hormuz has been effectively closed since March 4th, when Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps declared the waterway off limits to foreign commercial shipping following US and Israeli strikes on Iranian territory. 20% of the world's traded oil, 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas, gone from the market, not delayed, not disrupted, removed. And the United States Navy, operating the most capable surface fleet ever assembled, is struggling to reopen it. Here is why, and here is what it is going to take. Before we break down what just happened and what the United States military did about it, please take a moment to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel. Now let's get into it. The Strait of Hormuz separates Iran to the north from Oman and the UAE to the south. At its narrowest navigable point, it is 21 miles wide, roughly the distance from Lower Manhattan to the New Jersey Turnpike on a clear day. But the actual shipping corridor inside that gap is a fraction of the total width. 2 traffic lanes, each 2 miles wide, separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. That is the corridor through which a meaningful fraction of the global energy supply moved every single day, until it didn't. In 2024, approximately 20 million barrels of crude and refined petroleum products transited the strait daily, according to the US Energy Information Administration. That figure translates to roughly $500 billion, an annual energy trade passing through a waterway you could drive across in under 30 minutes. Through 2023 and into 2025, 20% of the world's LNG and 25% of all seaborne oil trade pass through this single point of geography each year. For Kuwait, Qatar, and Bahrain, the strait is not one of several options. It is the only maritime exit any of them possess. There is no alternate route, no bypass, no overland workaround that functions at meaningful scale. When the strait closes, those countries are not inconvenienced. They are landlocked by water. 4 pipeline systems exist that could theoretically carry Gulf crude overland, bypassing the strait. Combined, they handle between 3.5 and 5.5 million barrels per day at maximum capacity. The daily shortfall from a closed strait runs between 14.5 and 16.5 million barrels. No infrastructure currently in existence covers that gap. The world did not wait weeks to feel it. It felt it in days. Oil prices moved 10 to 13% in the first 72 hours after the closure. By early March, Brent crude was trading at $80 to $82 per barrel. By late March, it had crossed $100. At peak, it reached $114, the highest level since the COVID-19 pandemic. The International Energy Agency, in language that international institutions rarely deploy, described it as the greatest global energy security challenge in history. Europe entered the crisis already exposed. Heading into March, the continent was sitting at 30% gas storage capacity after a harsh winter. Dutch TTF natural gas benchmarks nearly doubled to over 60 euros per megawatt hour by mid-March. The European Central Bank postponed planned interest rate cuts. The IMF warned publicly that every 10% increase in energy prices pushes global inflation upward by nearly half a percentage point. The downstream effects moved quickly. Bangladesh closed universities early. Pakistan and the Philippines implemented 4-day work weeks to reduce energy consumption. Chemical and steel manufacturers across the UK and European Union imposed energy surcharges of up to 30% on production costs. This is what a closed Strait of Hormuz does to a globally integrated economy, not in months, in weeks. Most people assume the solution is straightforward. Send destroyers, escort ships through, done. It is not done, not remotely. Iran's closure strategy is not a single weapon or a single tactic. It is a layered system of threats, each one designed to complicate the response to the next. And the entire architecture is built specifically to defeat the kind of power the US Navy is best equipped to project. Start with the fast attack craft. The IRGC operates large numbers of Paycon and Tyr-class vessels. 40 to 50-foot fiberglass hulls, fast, heavily armed, and designed for swarming operations. They're cheap to build and cheap to replace. They're difficult to track from altitude against the radar clutter of a commercial shipping lane, and they are nearly impossible to engage efficiently from a large warship without simultaneously exposing that warship to additional threats from a different bearing. Then there are the mines. The Defense Intelligence Agency, in its last comprehensive open-source assessment, estimated Iran's naval mine inventory at over 5,000 weapons. Mines can be deployed rapidly from high-speed boats, from small submarines, and from shore-based positions along the Iranian coast. They are cheap. They are covert. They can be laid significantly faster than they can be cleared. Once a channel is mined, no number of escort destroyers resolves the problem, because the threat is already in the water, invisible, waiting, indifferent to warships passing 50 feet overhead. Air power can hit fast boat staging areas. Air power can strike mine-laying vessels before they deploy. CENTCOM confirmed on March 17th that multiple GBU 72 5,000-pound penetrator munitions were employed against hardened underground missile storage positions along the Iranian coast. Weapons selected precisely because the targets were buried under layers of rock and reinforced concrete. CENTCOM also confirmed by March 19th that A-10 Thunderbolt II aircraft were actively striking Iranian fast attack watercraft, and AH-64 Apache helicopters were being deployed to intercept one-way attack drones in the strait. But air power cannot hold the coastline that overlooks the clearing operation. And that coastline overlooks everything. 3 pieces of geography define who can actually control the Strait of Hormuz from the ground: Larak Island, Keshem Island, Abu Musa. They sit inside and adjacent to the strait itself. They are not simply pieces of land, they are armed positions, radar installations, anti-ship missile launch sites, surveillance infrastructure with direct line-of-sight coverage over every navigable lane below them. The IRGC has spent years converting them into layered defensive positions specifically engineered to hold maritime traffic at risk without requiring a single Iranian surface combatant to leave port. CENTCOM confirmed on March 17th that U.S. forces employed GBU 72 penetrator munitions against hardened missile storage sites along the Iranian coast. Those strikes degraded the threat. They did not eliminate it. Iranian military sources, speaking to state media, stated that Iran had already fired over 500 ballistic and naval missiles and nearly 2,000 drones since the start of hostilities by March 5th. An analyst noted that the firing rate suggested Iran was rationing, holding significant reserves back for a longer campaign. Air power can crater a missile silo. It cannot occupy Larak Island. It cannot prevent the IRGC from returning to a struck position and rearming it after the strike aircraft have returned to the carrier. Air power destroys. It cannot hold. To protect mine clearance vessels while they work. To give the minesweepers the minutes they need to clear a lane without Iranian crews on elevated terrain remining it from shore. You need to control the terrain around the clearing operation. That is not a naval mission. It is not an air mission. It is a marine mission. They are already at sea. On March 11th, 2026, the USS Tripoli departed Okinawa, Japan, with the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit embarked. Approximately 2,200 Marines. The Tripoli is an America-class amphibious assault ship, 43,745 tons, optimized for sustained aviation-heavy operations. She carries F-35, B Lightning II fighter jets, MV-22B Osprey tiltrotor aircraft, and CH-53E Super Stallion heavy-lift helicopters. Her design prioritizes continuous air operations, enlarged hangar deck, expanded aviation fuel capacity, every decision oriented toward keeping aircraft flying continuously from the sea. The 31st MEU is the only continuously forward-deployed Marine Expeditionary Unit in the Pacific, permanently based in Japan precisely for contingencies requiring rapid response without a transit window measured in weeks. Following behind is the USS Boxer, carrying the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit out of Naval Base San Diego, another 2,200 Marines. Supporting vessels include USS New Orleans and USS Rushmore. Pentagon officials simultaneously confirmed 2,500 additional Marines en route. Combined Marine combat power converging on the theater between 4,700 and 5,000 personnel. A Marine Expeditionary Unit is built around what the Marine Corps calls the Marine Air Ground Task Force. 4 fully integrated components operating as a single, self-contained system. A command element, a ground combat element, an aviation combat element, a logistics combat element. The entire structure is designed to operate independently from the sea, requiring no host nation basing, no pre-positioned equipment, and no fixed infrastructure ashore to sustain combat operations. This is a force designed to arrive and act, not to wait for conditions to improve. A Marine Expeditionary Unit brings 4 specific capabilities to the Strait of Hormuz that no destroyer, no carrier, and no air campaign can replicate. The first is coastal assault and island seizure. The 31st MEU's aviation-heavy configuration, Super Stallions, Ospreys, and AH-1Z Viper attack helicopters gives commanders the ability to conduct air assault operations onto terrain that cannot be approached by sea under fire. Islands with reinforced coastal defenses that would stop a landing craft can be taken from the air by Marines inserted from standoff distance at night before the garrison can effectively respond. The second is mine countermeasure support. Mine clearance vessels, minesweepers working to clear transit lanes for commercial shipping, cannot operate under fire from Iranian positions on elevated terrain ashore. Marines who have seized and secured that terrain eliminate the threat to the clearance operation. Without the ground security layer, minesweeping proceeds under constant, unacceptable risk. CENTCOM confirmed 44 Iranian mine-laying vessels destroyed by March 19th. But confirmed vessel kills do not account for mines already in the water. The third is visit, board, search, and seizure operations. Marines launching from Tripoli, New Orleans, and Rushmore can intercept vessels suspected of transporting mines, weapons, or IRGC personnel. The MV-22B Osprey allows boarding teams to insert from distances that keep the mothership outside Iranian weapons range. The same operational model used during Operation Praying Mantis in 1988 and throughout Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2003. The fourth capability is the one no one in Washington is confirming publicly, but no one is dismissing either. Karg Island handles approximately 90% of all Iranian crude oil exports. CENTCOM confirmed strikes against its military infrastructure on March 13th. Naval mine storage, missile storage bunkers, military positions. The oil terminal itself was deliberately spared, and Trump stated publicly that this decision was conditional on Iranian behavior. A Marine battalion landing team, up to 550 personnel with organic fire support, logistics, and aviation, is specifically the kind of force capable of seizing and holding infrastructure of that type. Taking Karg Island physically would not be a strike on Iranian military capability. It would be the seizure of the economic mechanism that funds the Iranian government's ability to continue the war. No air campaign, however precise, creates that kind of leverage. A strike destroys a capability. A seizure creates a bargaining position, whether that is the plan or whether nearly 5,000 Marines represent a deterrent signal designed to change Iranian calculations without a shot fired ashore is a question that official statements have not answered. By March 26, Israeli forces confirmed the killing of IRGC Naval Commander Ali Reza Tangsiri, the officer directly overseeing Iran's blockade strategy. Iran replaced him within 48 hours, and the IRGC continued blocking vessels, including ships from countries Iran had previously announced would be permitted passage. On March 24th, the United States presented a 15-point proposal to Iran through Pakistani intermediaries: dismantle the nuclear program, end uranium enrichment, surrender the existing stockpile, limit ballistic missile development, end support for regional proxy forces, and guarantee freedom of navigation. Iran rejected it. The White House issued a further warning of military action on March 25th. 22 nations have signed a joint statement supporting measures to restore safe passage through the strait. Most NATO members have declined to commit military assets. Here's where the situation stands. The US Navy can dominate the surface of the Persian Gulf indefinitely. It can sink Iranian vessels, maintain air superiority, and interdict maritime traffic attempting to enforce the blockade. That is not in question. What naval dominance cannot do is clear mines from a channel while Iranian crews on an elevated island 800 meters away are watching the operation through optical sights. It cannot prevent remining after a lane is cleared. It cannot hold the terrain that overlooks the only corridor through which a fifth of the world's energy supply moves. Iran's strategy was never designed to defeat the US Navy in open water. It was designed to make the strait too costly to use. Through terrain, through mines, through land-based missiles buried in rock and concrete, through cheap asymmetric weapons specifically engineered to impose costs that conventional naval power cannot efficiently absorb. Every layer of that strategy points to the same requirement. You have to take the ground. That is not a destroyer mission. That is not what a carrier strike group was built for. It is a marine mission, and that is precisely why nearly 5,000 of them are currently steaming toward the most consequential 21 miles of water on Earth. The question is not whether they're capable of doing it. The question is what it costs to find out. Every strike has an aftermath. Every decision made in a command center sends ripples that take months, sometimes years, to fully surface. We'll be tracking those ripples. If this breakdown was useful, share it. If you want the full picture on what's coming, subscribe.